Good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be just a very quick look at the cent book by John Wright, which is a resource that really everybody should have if you are a large cent collector. I pulled out a few coins that we'll take a look at in the book. A couple of the 1823 restrikes, and then this 1836 N2, which I got, I don't know, looks like I got it almost a year ago. And that coin was previously owned by Mr. John Wright, and I've had some correspondence with him since. He even sent me some pictures he had taken of my coin back when it was under his period of ownership. But this is just unscripted. I figure we'll take a little bit of a look through the book, see what all it contains. I've mostly used it as a kind of a middle date reference. Looks like this was published back in 1992. Nice introduction about why to collect middle date large cents. Discussion about early American coppers, which is a club dedicated to the collection and education enjoyment of early American copper coins. And if you're not a member, truly you should be. Their quarterly publication of Pennywise is worth the price of joining alone. They have an annual conference, which I have not been able to make it to yet myself due to some date conflicts, but I intend to be there next year in Charlotte in 2026. There's some discussion about the grading system, about the condition census and how that all works. Rarity designations, values, a little bit of information about how you do attribution and some of the diagnostic features you'll be looking at, glossary of terms. Mouse on head, that's one you should look into if you haven't. I don't have a mouse on head middle date, but it's a like an internal cud that looks like there's a mouse sitting on top of Liberty's head, and it's kind of funny. All right, I'm going to flip to 1823 and look at that restrike. 1823 is a real tough date for date collectors, only two varieties. And then the obverse die from the N2, which had started to form a bit of a cud here, which progressed beyond that when it was still at the mint. After that die was retired, it was eventually sold off with some scrap steel, which fell into private hands. And it was well known that 1823 date was a rare, difficult date to find. So that obverse die was paired with a different reverse die, and some counterfeit coins were struck using authentic US dies. And there's a couple of mine. The lighting is not ideal for showing these off, but let's see what we can do. Yeah, there's one of my early examples, which predates the big bisecting crack. The book here tells us that there was 49 of those struck before the dies cracked. And then the bisecting crack appeared, and then that lower crack appeared from the bottom later. You can see that big cud appear by my index finger. Just a really neat example of die progression and crack progression and cud formation. Anyway, there's some descriptions and information about that particular restrike coin. Talks about rarity, a little bit of history, some striking variations and whatnot. The next one we'll look at is this 1836, which is an N2. 35, 36, 2. Here we go. Thin pointed bust. Yes, it is thin and pointed. That's interesting. It's rather thin, even compared to the example over here. That's a little thicker. Picking up where we left off there, my lovely wife came in to say hi into my recording studio, which is also, my desk in our bedroom, because I'm not a professional at this. Anyway, I was looking at that thin pointed bust. That's something I hadn't noticed before, and I've had this coin again for almost a year. But definitely this is a thicker bust tip up there. What else we got? Tip of bust is long, narrow, more pointed than on the earlier. Ooh, even earlier. Let's go back. Let's go back more. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Oh, on the earlier 36s. Did I go back too far? Moving along. Leading edge of the cornet is well defined and unevenly curved. Okay. No stars are recut. Small, bold center dot. On the obverse, huh? Oh, yeah. It's going to be right in front of the ear. Right in front of the ear. Yeah, definitely. There it is. I can't show you what I'm seeing, but there is definitely a center dot just in front of the opening of the ear. The reverse. This one's got a crack that runs through the word one and then just below the S in States over through the M in America. So it travels a path about like that. And yes, you can see it. You see it? You can see it. See if I can get closer with it focused. Yeah, the focus isn't great, but you can see that crack. I actually got this one for the crack. This is before I really got into the early dates. But I've always liked die cracks. So that was why I picked this one up, and because of the John Wright provenance, which is very cool. Okay. Traces of an inner circle shows under the dental tips in several places. Something that you see more in the middle dates than in the earlier dates that I'm accustomed to is by the time these coins were being struck, our dies were lasting hundreds of thousands of strikes, whereas in like 1793 and 4, they were lasting like 10,000 strikes, sometimes only a few thousand strikes in 1793. So these dies would last a lot longer before they would fail, which means they were subject to a lot more wear, because they would still wear, they just wouldn't break. So what you'll see is, see how you see dental teeth there? On my coin, it's very smooth. And as the dies were striking copper repeatedly and the copper was flowing across the face of the die, some of those details would just erode away. And that's what's going on here. The dentals on this example don't really exist on my coin. That's not from circulation. It's just because the dies were super worn out. So that's kind of fun. Let's see. A graver scratch joins the feet of TES. Is that right? Oh, okay. Yeah, there it is a little bit. Joins the feet of T and E. I kind of see it in the picture. I will be damned if I can see it on my coin. I can't see it. I wonder if the die was resurfaced and that went away by the end of its deployment, because this is definitely late in the die progression. A's are so perfectly patched, just almost appear unbroken. Oh yeah, look at that. This fades on later strikes. That explains it if I read one more sentence. Both leaf tips under the final S are extended to sharp points. Yeah, very sharp points right there. And I can see them just with a naked eye on mine. C of America has a bold graver scratch close to his mouth. That's something I can kind of see in the photo, but again, with the naked eye, I can't make it out on mine, and I don't think I will under a loop either. I don't see anything. I do see some pretty heavy flow lines, though, under magnification. which is more evidence that this die was very well worn and almost worn out. And the tiny center dot disappears in later strikes. I definitely don't see the center dot, even though I do often see that on, yeah, like here's a good example, that center dot between 1 and cent underneath of the N and 1, and then above the space between the E and the N and cent. That's pretty common, particularly on reverses. On the obverse, it's usually hidden, kind of like it is in the ear there. But man, I love this coin, and I love this book. Really just a shout out to Mr. Wright for putting out such an excellent resource for us to have access to. These middle dates have some really cool radial die cracks that you'll see, particularly early on. Well, I guess kind of everywhere. I think earlier on is where you get some of those big radial cracks though. There's something going on there, like a die chip. Middle dates really, here's a cud. Middle dates really could be a lot of fun, you guys, if that's what you choose to get into. Well, that's the restrike. Gosh, I just love that coin. Let me find a good radial crack before we put this book away. If I was more well, there we go. Look at that. That's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, this crack, it looks like it runs all the way through here. Maybe a second crack that runs there to this star, and then it jumps over and kind of overlaps. Again, you have a crack down here too. Yeah, that 1820 N13, that is super cool. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts as I bump my camera mount on the Cent book by John Wright. If you don't have a copy, you really do need to get one. I think the more that you get into early copper coin collecting and numismatics in general, the more important your library becomes. And I just have books laying around here on my desk even. Al Boca's Provenance Gallery of 1794 lists some prominent collectors, and then some condition census, high condition census examples of each of those varieties. Really enjoy this Powers Attribution Guide. I use it all the time. There's some junk silver. And then, I need to do a video on this one too. If you can get your hands on a copy of this, and you're gonna have a hard time doing so, well worth it. I'll do a whole video on this, but it's also available for free to EAC members on our member portal. Another reason to join Early American Coppers. But in closing, the Cent book by John Wright. If you don't have one, definitely get one. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see y'all in the next one.